Hello, fellow classmates. My name is Aiden Bean. Today, I am presenting the negative rebuttal speech, arguing against my own affirmative construction from the first policy debate. I oppose the affirmative team's proposition because I disagree with the idea that the United States federal government should establish a national health insurance policy. Due to my partner's lack of response, I will address some common rebuttals to my core arguments. The affirmative may argue that even though 92% of U.S. citizens are covered by health insurance, millions still go uninsured. This is an issue with the current system. However, ACA subsidy expansions, cost-sharing reductions, and price transparency laws are ways that the current system is improving nationwide coverage, which helps to prove that the system can improve without replacing it entirely. Another claim that could be made by the affirmative side is insurance doesn't fix everything, but it still improves early detection, chronic care management, and life expectancy. Lifestyle factors don't negate the need for universal insurance. Insurance does help, but it's not the primary deterrent for health outcomes, so establishing a national health insurance policy can't be considered a cure-all solution to making American citizens healthier. In this debate, the affirmative fails to prove harms, inherency, solvency, and there are several disadvantages to the national health insurance policy that the affirmative proposed. These factors help solidify the negative side as the winner in this debate. The harms in the affirmative argument are real, but they oversimplify the nature and severity of the harms of the current U.S. healthcare system. First, the idea that the U.S. healthcare system actively harms people by allowing millions of citizens to go uninsured is a severe misrepresentation. Uninsurance among Americans is at an all-time low because of measures like Obamacare. Lack of coverage is not always the result of system failure, but of individual non-re-enrollment, immigration status issues, or refusal of employer coverage. Secondly, the idea that the current U.S. health insurance policy financially harms U.S. citizens through bankruptcy isn't logically sound. The affirmative case cited statistics that included bankruptcies that were only partially medically induced. These types of studies in question also defined medical bankruptcies broadly, including not only explicit medical bills, but also income loss due to illness or injury. This can inflate the numbers in these studies, making them an unreliable source of evidence. Also, according to a report from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, around 20% of Americans have substantial medical debt, and in a year, less than 1% of Americans file for personal bankruptcy. The report from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, combined with the unreliable source of evidence used in the affirmative debate, suggests that the assumption that the current U.S. health insurance plan causes major financial harm to U.S. citizens is overinflated. Finally, U.S. health outcomes depend on more than just insurance. One of the biggest drivers of U.S. mortality inequities is obesity, chronic disease, lifestyle, firearms, income inequality, and geographic rural access. A national health insurance plan does not effectively address these systematic issues regarding the health of U.S. citizens. The inherency of the affirmative team's argument failed the necessary standard. The affirmative argues that the political gridlock in lobbying block reform. The affirmative only shows that the reform is slow, not impossible. Incremental reforms are already occurring throughout the nation. Some examples of this is the expansion of ACA subsidies, Medicaid expansion in most states, and price transparency laws. Inherency requires proving that the system cannot improve without the proposed policy. Instead, the governmental policy shows the system is reforming slowly. Finally, the solvency of the affirmative claims has several issues. First, giving everyone insurance does not guarantee medical access. Countries that have national health insurance, like Canada, have several issues preventing medical access, like appointment backlogs and shortage of primary care physicians. There is no guarantee that the U.S. system would guarantee medical access. Also, a national health insurance policy in the U.S. isn't guaranteed to lower costs. Administrative savings are speculative, and government-run plans also face cost overruns, long wait times, and budget caps. There are several disadvantages to the affirmative team's proposal that the United States federal government should establish a national health insurance policy. The proposed plan is a publicly funded single-payer system. However, the single-payer system has many consequences. The The implementation of the single-payer system would require a lot of federal funding. Urban Wire states in their most recent report that the broad single-payer reform would increase the federal government spending by over $34 trillion over the 2020 through 2029 period. $34 trillion beyond what the U.S. government already spends on healthcare. This huge amount of government spending can lead to slowed economic growth and an increased federal deficit if the taxes don't keep up. Another issue with this proposed plan is reduced medical innovation. The single-payer system reduces prices artificially, which can lead to decreased investment in new research and fewer new drugs entering development. The counterplan that the negative proposed is also superior to the affirmative plan. The negative counterplan was that the U.S. federal government should establish a regulated multi-payer universal coverage system that would require all residents to have health insurance provided through either nonprofit or regulated private insurers, setting this national coverage standards and guarantee access for all plans, expanding ACA subsidies to make health insurance universally affordable. This would also regulate insurers by capping new administrative overhead and profit margins. Medicaid and Medicare would also be regulated into this new system. This plan has several advantages over the single-payer system proposed by the affirmative, as it achieves universal coverage without eliminating private choice and maintains incentives for innovation. The affirmative proposal fails to meet the burden on harms, as they are overstated, inherency, as reforms are ongoing and possible, and solvency, as the single-payer system creates new problems and does not guarantee improved outcomes. Meanwhile, we, the negative, provide compelling disadvantages such as reduced medical innovation and large amounts of federal spending, and a superior counterplan in form of the regulated multiplayer universal coverage system that achieves universal coverage without the destructive consequences of the affirmative's proposal. Par these factors, this is why I do believe that the negative wins this debate. Thank you.